Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this would be episode 191 for you guys today. And to kick off today's episode, I'll be sharing my NFL divisional round game summaries from all the four respective playoff games that transpired last weekend in the NFL playoffs. So we'll start off with the first game where you had the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, the number one seeded Kansas City Chiefs out in the AFC. They defeated the fourth seeded Houston Texans by a score of 23-14 to punch their ticket to the AFC Championship game. Now, Patrick Mahomes has officially extended his record to 7-0 in the divisional round. The Chiefs, to me, they didn't really play their best offensively, but number 87 did. Travis Kelce, I saw something, a burst of athleticism, the speed, out of one of the best tight ends to ever do it. He looked rejuvenized out there, like it was a brand new season. Like the playoffs are a different season than the regular season. And Travis Kelce came to play in the divisional round against the Houston Texans. It was big offensively for the Kansas City Chiefs. Had a total of 7 catches, 117 yards receiving, 1 touchdown for Travis Kelce. Shout out to Patrick Mahomes, who threw that amazing dart, the amazing dot to Travis Kelce for him to score his only touchdown in this ball game. Patrick Mahomes was falling to the ground, and it was still a perfect throw, as I get tongue-tied, to Travis Kelce out there in the end zone that helped assist the Chiefs to defeat the Houston Texans out in the divisional round. The Chiefs' defense did a pretty good job limiting the Texans to points when it mattered most. Yes, they did score a total of 14 points in this game, but if you watched all 4 quarters, the Chiefs' defense did a pretty good job keeping the Houston Texans out of scoring range or keeping them away from scoring points on the board when it mattered most a lot in this ball game. Their defense really came to play, especially the pass rush. They had C.J. Stroud under a lot of stress in this game. He was not comfortable moving around the pocket. Hell, he was sacked a total of 8 times in this ball game, thanks to the Kansas City Chiefs pass rush that had C.J. Stroud knocked down in the game. How he even, before the Texans went out to kick the field goal to try to get them to get even closer into the lead for them to possibly set up for an onside kick in the fourth quarter, C.J. Stroud had to limp off the field for those closing moments of the ball game when the game only had 60 seconds left. So that's how bad the Houston Texans defense has C.J. Stroud under duress the entire game. But I give credit to the Houston Texans. They fought their asses off to at least make this a competitive game. And they might have unlocked the blueprint for a team that the Chiefs are going to have to play this weekend in the Buffalo Bills. I'll get to that later on in the episode. But the Houston Texans ran the ball pretty well as a team and effectively. They ran the ball for 149 yards as a team against this Kansas City Chiefs defense. I got to say, for this Texans team that lost Stephon Diggs, that lost Tank Dell due to injuries, 2 out of 3 of your best wide receivers not available for C.J. Stroud, they still found a way to make it to a point where they were last year and finish their season in the divisional round. So I give C.J. Stroud credit for picking up his second playoff victory during the playoffs this year when they defeated the Chargers 2 weeks ago. But in the end, the Kansas City Chiefs were too much for the Houston Texans to handle, and then moving on to the AFC Championship game. Now, next game, out in the NFC, you had the 6th-seeded Washington Commanders defeat the number 1 seeded Detroit Lions by a score of 45-31 to punch their ticket to the NFC Championship, the Commanders' first NFC Championship game since 1992. So that is huge for the Commanders. I will say, I was shocked that the Commanders walked into Detroit, walked into the Detroit Lions trap, took over the trap, and played the way that they did. Now, heading into this game, I said last week on the episode that it would be the Detroit Lions offense that'd be too much for the Commanders defense to handle, and they wouldn't be able to keep pace with them the entire game. Well, it was flipped and vice versa. The Commanders offense was too much for the Detroit Lions defense to handle, and they could not keep up with them for the duration of this game. Cliff Kingsbury called one hell of a game. He's been one hell of a play caller for the Commanders. Calling plays for rookie Jaden Daniels. I mean, the play calling worked. Jaden Daniels was effective passing the ball, getting his play catchers like Dewami Brown, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz going. The running backs of Brian Robinson, and Austin Eckler were going in the running game for the Commanders. So they were doing pretty good. And Aaron Glenn's defense couldn't keep up with this Washington Commanders offense. No matter what adjustments he could make, they were still putting up points on the board any which way how they wanted to in this game. But there's a story in this game as well. Was Ben Johnson's play calling sloppy? Because Gibbs was averaging 10.7 yards per carry at halftime in this ball game. And in the second half, Ben Johnson only gave the ball to him a total of 4 times in the second half. And I was questioning the trick play that he had where Jamison Williams had the ball. He threw the ball down the field, which resulted in an interception late in the fourth quarter of this ball game. So some crucial play calling and not giving your dynamic running back more carries to wear down this Washington Commanders defense when you're only down by 10 heading into the second half. I thought that was really questionable, and it's not all on Ben Johnson play calling wise. Jared Goff did not play his best either. Had 313 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 3 interceptions. I mean, you got to say, for 2 guys that were on the same page all year long, with Ben Johnson being his bag play calling for Jared Goff, he wasn't in his bag play calling as effectively as he was during the regular season, and Jared Goff turning the ball over. Those 2 elements might have costed the Lions another trip to the NFC Championship. Now, the argument is there that Ben Johnson didn't have the worst game because the Lions did have over 500 yards total in total offense. But when you look at the crucial play calling of what could have changed or what he could have done better, this has to be one of his worst play calling games of the season. So Lions didn't get it done there. Commanders punched their ticket to the NFC Championship. Then to the Sunday games, you had in the NFC still, you had the 2nd-seeded Philadelphia Eagles defeat the 4th-seeded Los Angeles Rams by a score of 28-22 to punch their ticket to the NFC Championship. So just like you saw in the first game between the Eagles and the Rams, it was all Saquon Barkley's world. And out in the snow, Saquon Barkley put that Philadelphia Eagles offense on his back. He had 26 carries, 205 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. The man had a day to remember out in Philly in the snow, out in front of the home crowd of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he's been the engine that has been going, keeping this Philadelphia Eagles offense fresh and going all year long. Mr. 2K having 2,000 rushing yards in his first year with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, to Matthew Stafford and the Rams standpoint, they put up one hell of a fight. They fought all 4 quarters. They played their hearts out, and they didn't quit, but it just wasn't enough. But Matthew Stafford did have a total of 324 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. They played all the way to the final possession. But when it mattered most, when the Eagles defense had to buckle down and then made plays when it mattered most, Jalen Carter coming up big and getting that sack, that crucial sack to put the Rams back in yardage when they were moving that ball down the field on their final possession to put them in a 3rd and long situation, 4th and long situation. The Eagles defense showed up when it mattered most. They also had 2 key turnovers as well, forcing 2 forced fumbles in this game. So the Philadelphia Eagles defense deserves a lot of credit, just like Saquon Barkley does, for this Philadelphia Eagles victory. And for the final game, you had the Buffalo Bills out in the AFC. You had the 2nd-seeded Buffalo Bills defeat the 3rd-seeded Baltimore Ravens by a score of 27-25 to punch their ticket to the AFC Championship. Now, in this game, Josh Allen did have 2 rushing touchdowns that were pretty key and important for the Bills to have this victory over the Baltimore Ravens. Those points piled up on the scoreboard. Now, this next part I'm going to get into. Now, the Ravens, I think they beat themselves in this game. Without the crucial mistakes against the Buffalo Bills, I truly think that they would have punched their ticket to play the Kansas City Chiefs in an AFC Championship rematch from last year, this time it being in Arrowhead instead of Baltimore. Now, I asked you guys on our social media poll on our Instagram account a few days ago who was to blame for the Ravens' loss, and 47% of you guys said the Ravens' loss is on the entire Baltimore Ravens team. Now, I agree because a lot of people like to point the finger at Mark Andrews with the 2-point conversion drop. I'll get to that. But it takes a lot for you to lose a game, and it's a team effort because Lamar Jackson had 2 turnovers in the first half. He had an interception and a fumble. Mark Andrews also had a fumble as well. That's 3 turnovers in the first half. And then Mark Andrews had the dropped 2-point conversion at the end of the game when the Baltimore Ravens had the Buffalo Bills on the ropes, when they came back from a 21-10 deficit, when the score was 27-25 after Lamar Jackson threw that touchdown, Isaiah Likely. Yes, Mark Andrews should have caught the ball for the 2-point conversion, yes. But why not count the 3 turnovers that you had in the first half that put you in that position down 21-10 in the first half anyway? Why are you not looking at Tom Moore to have more RPO looks like he had a week ago against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense? Why was there not more RPO plays of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry going with the rushing game? In a snow environment, I know 16 carries might sound a lot to some football fans, but look at what Saquon Barkley just did with the Philadelphia Eagles. He had over 20 carries, over 200 yards, and helped the Philadelphia Eagles win. Why didn't Derrick Henry get something similar to that, getting over 20 carries and the RPO game of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry going? They would have been unstoppable, and they could have wore down that Bills defense. But I think it's a collective unit. The Ravens lost this game as a whole, as a team, based on the first half turnovers, based on the 2-point conversion Mark Andrews didn't convert, and based off the fact you could have ran the ball more with Derrick Henry, knowing that you did not have your number 1 wide receiver, Zay Flowers, for back-to-back weeks. But hats off to the Bills. It'll be a long offseason for the Baltimore Ravens. But that is my NFL divisional round game summary from this past weekend in the NFL playoffs.